Hey guys, it's Ryan here from TKK Collector. I grade cards so that I can make them more liquid, so that I can, flip them. I like collecting PSA 10s. I like PSA 10s in my collection. I like value collecting, so hitting that 10 and keeping that really nice card. But you don't always get 10s. And the thing about here in Canada is 9s are really not very liquid. So what I decided to do was let PSA deal with all my failed grading plays, which means if I get a 9 or an 8, let PSA deal with it. So if you're interested in this kind of video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I'm going to get into the meat and details of how to let PSA, if you have a PSA membership, deal with your failed grading plays. Now, I thought I had a solution to my problem when PSA started to do this. They allow you, when your grades are revealed, to either do two things. One, send it to the PSA vault, or send it back to you. Sending to the PSA vault gives you the flexibility for PSA to auction your cards. And I think they're going to add buy it now eventually in the vault, but they auction your cards. Interesting, right? You're in Canada, you know that the auctioning, the eBay market, especially for PSA 9s, is much smaller in Canada. But if you can send to the United States and have PSA, a big seller, flip your cards for you, that could be very compelling. Well, I definitely lost money letting PSA flip auction my cards, my failed grading plays. But I think it's still worth it. And let me explain to you why. If you're familiar with grading cards, I think a PSA membership costs you about $200 a year. Now, I did a video before on when you should be a PSA member. PSA has been making it far more compelling to have your own membership compared to using a middleman. The magazines that they send you, they send the Luffy card this year. Those are like paying for the membership easily beyond just the savings you get from the monthly discounts. Definitely worth it if you're someone in Canada and you grade and flip cards. Definitely worth it. Even if you grade anywhere than 30 cards a year, it's worth it. Now, if you don't, use a middleman. Now, there's a middleman here in Bedford. It's a big middleman. AMG Collectibles. They're a store that opened up. They started dealing with Pokemon about a year after we started our store. So if they didn't exist, or if they existed at the time, we probably wouldn't have started our business because we couldn't find Pokemon anywhere. Anyway, they're a competitor of mine. But if someone is looking for a middleman, I'll actually send them over to AMG Collectibles and let them middleman PSA submit their cards. In Ontario, I think there's another big submitter, big middleman, Katie Collectibles, Kevin Douglas. I've heard lots of good things, never used them. Never used AMG Collectibles either, but those are the two known Canadian middlemen for PSA submissions that I recommend to people when they talk to me. But I think you should really consider looking into it for yourself if you're a flipper or grader. Don't waste time, money with middlemen. There's some options here. So when you do grade with PSA yourself, you have an account and you can see your cards, go through the steps of grading. You have to submit it and all that, but it's nothing, right? It's easy to do. You see your cards go through the state, and sometimes at the very end, they reveal your grades, which, great, reveal in digital. All the, of course, we do videos, grading reveals, etc., but you'll see them in the app, grades of PSA 10, PSA 9, etc. And at that point, you can choose whether you want to send that card to the PSA vault or send it back to you. Even when you start your grading submission, you can choose whether you want to spend the $100 to ship it back to you, or do you want to leave it in the PSA vault. You leave it in the PSA vault, PSA will auction it via eBay. They'll create an auction, send it to auction. Their PSA account, which has many people watching it, they'll put it right on there and they'll auction your cards. When you get that grading reveal, PSA 10s, PSA 9s, PSA 8s, failed grading plays, you get an option then. You get to choose what you want to do with the cards. Ship it back, send it to the vault, etc. What I decided to do was all my 9s and an 8, and I submitted about 21 cards. I only got 10 10s, which is a really poor 10 ratio. It's the nature of trade-in cards. I probably get the seconds from someone's collection, but anyway, only got 10 10s, the rest 9s, 1 8 out of 21 cards. I decided to send 11 to vault for auction. Here's what happened. I decided to ship all the 10s back to me because I like having 10s in the store. They're a little more liquid. People will trade for them a lot easier than they will trade for a 9. So you get more out of them, and it's okay. But 9s here in Canada, really, really not very liquid. There's not a lot of 9s buyers. And when you auction them, very rarely, if ever, would you make what they call PSA 9 market for 9s. And when PSA pays out, it's really simple. You set up a PSA account and a Stripe account, give them their bank deposit information, and the money will go directly into your bank account. So it's actually quite good for letting them, if you're going to auction your cards anyway, let them do it. Now, yeah, you don't get the feedback on your eBay store, etc., but you know, it's a trade-off. So here's what I did. It's 21 cards. The submission and the shipping fees was about $358 US. Now that's $17 a card. Now, yeah, there's $13 US to grade, but you know, they charge a lot to ship back because it's insured shipping, etc. So I actually also have the raw costs of the cards. So it's all cards that I knew the exact raw card cost, about $750 US in raw cards. So my total cost to grading, like the fees and the cards, it's $1,109. $1,109. If, when the gradings were set, I got market on all of them, all the 10s, all the 9s, got market, I would net about $1,242. And so that means it's only like $130 in profit from that whole process. I'll be only up $130. And that to me is a failed grading play. You should be doing better than that. It's because of my low 10 ratio. I should have got a lot more 10s because it was a very heavy Japanese submission, etc. It should have been 70% 10s, but alas, failed grading play. Great time to try out my theory that I can get PSA to auction my cards. I did not do well pre-grading, as I mentioned. They're trade-ins, they're seconds, they're duplicates. People keep the best one for their binder, etc. 9s are really not very liquid. I get 9s back and they're going to sit. It's a little bit, sometimes they go, sometimes they don't. Someone will buy it, crack it, etc. Whatever. Failed grading plays. So the thing about PSA 9s in Canada is they're really not very liquid. They're just going to sit in the store. They're not going to do much. I would much rather immediately flip them into auction, and I've actually been doing that here in my own eBay store, is auctioning off 9s as much as possible. What I did is I let them sell it. So they went ahead and they sold my cards, and the total amount would be $1,205. So that would have been my amount. So it would basically cost me about $35 if I got all market for them to sell my 9s and my 8s. But that's based on what they sold them for. Now, the thing about the PSA and that eBay deal, the rates, the charges, the amount you pay percentage-wise for the cards, it's much higher than just auctioning via eBay. Now, there's some benefits, right? US shipping is not really a big deal. It's really cheap to ship stuff. Here, you know, it costs at least $8, $9 to ship any single slab. So it's expensive. But PSA, they took a lion's share. They took anywhere from 16% to 47% of the total sale price away from me. So, you know, they'll sell it for $46 and give me $26. So that happens, right? So after I got how much they'll actually pay me out, the total cost of them flipping my cards, it cost me like $95 US for them to do the work for me, for them to auction it, for them to ship it, for them to, you know, return me my money. Still not bad, right? What I do is able to take those 9s and 8s, get near market, don't have to do the work, don't have to bother with those 9s. They basically turning them back into money. And if you guys know anything about the Pokemon business, it's all about churning. It's all about making plays, flipping plays. If you make profit, that's good. If you don't, you don't. It happens, right? So that's what we did. And instead of making $1,242 market on my grading play, I netted about $1,147 US. So out of the whole process, I maybe made $100 US. That is not great, but those 9s, if they came back, they would be a pain to sell. They would not make market. Canadian market is very likelihood, well, it is much smaller. It's like the size of one state. It's much smaller than the United States. I think if I had to deal with my failed grading plays, if I had to ship those 9s, if I had back to me, if I had to auction them, I would have lost a lot more money. So I think if you're a Canadian, you have a PSA membership and you're grading cards to flip, I think this is a really viable option to deal with the failures. Obviously, you want to hit 10s. 10s are the way to go. But I think there's actually even a Canadian play where you send them a bunch of graded cards, don't get it shipped back, and you auction it off. And, you know, if you have a good 10 ratio, you'll actually make money from the whole ordeal. You don't have to worry about auctioning when it gets back. Basically, they do a strike payment right into your bank account after it sells. So, you know, when you get your grades back, send them to auction. A week later, you know how much you're going to get for each of the cards. They're very transparent of what they sold for, what the auction was, and they're very transparent of what fees they're going to take for that. But they're only transparent of the fees after it's sold. But I lost some money compared to doing it myself. But I think the fact that I didn't have to touch them, didn't have to do anything, just click, 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 I think very compelling idea to let PSA handle your failed grading pace, especially if you are a Canadian reseller and you have a PSA account and you don't have to pay that shipment fee back, which is a killer. You don't have to pay, you know, if customs hits you, which I don't know, they haven't hit me in PSA once, but I've heard rumors of grading companies having to pay customs coming back, even though it's your cards that you sent down for service. Anyway, so I didn't make a lot of money in this particular grading play. I hit way too many 9s and an 8. So those usually kill any grading submission. I broke even, but I got to try out in a small scale, letting PSA deal with my failures, which I think it's a really good thing. I think it's something that I'm going to keep doing. Like I have another submission of 50 cards that I'm going to look through in 9s and 8s. Why send them back? Why bring them back and get money from them, right? I'm just going to sell them in the US and done. Of course, this is a card I want. If there's a card I want to, let's say I have, you know, a special delivered Pikachu and it hits a 9. I want that back, right? That's a personal collection. So you get to choose when the grades are revealed. The problem is there is a very small window between when the grades are revealed and when you can actually get them sent to auction or sent back. So you have to be there, open the cards, look at the grades, make your decisions, and boom. Because PSA ships things back like within a day of the card reveal. So try that. Do you have a PSA membership? Have you ever tried this? What has your what's your output? Did you lose money like I did? Are you okay with losing that profit just so that you don't have to deal with 9s and 8s here in Canada? Would you do the same as what I did? Am I missing anything? Is there any questions you have about the whole process? Let me know in the comments. This is Ryan, failed grading play, letting PSA deal with my failures. Thanks for watching, guys.